What's up everyone, and welcome back to Baraka. For today's video, I'd like to show you the method I've been working on for a little over a month now on how to beat Phase 2 Special Mission using OG Cal as well as Cere. This is fairly consistent. The one thing I would say is it involves a little bit more guesswork than I would like, specifically revolving around Cere's nuke and the fact that it stacks up percent health damage based on enemy turns. But there's a little bit of guesswork in has it cooked for long enough? Do I have enough time to wait another set of turns? I think ultimately Jedi Cal is going to probably feel a little bit safer. But if you don't have Jedi Cal, or if you just want to know how this works, this is going to be the way that you're going to have to run it. And the good news is it's actually a pretty straightforward mission overall. This is mostly a mod puzzle. We really are going to focus everyone on bulk. And as long as we have a good enough bulk, we can sustain ourselves for a very long time. By the time for that Cere nuke, let her just wipe the entire board. And it's nice and simple. There are two very key differences that you need to know here. The main differences revolve around both of their uniques. So on Cal's unique, when we get critically hit, we regenerate 5% of our health as well as 5% of our protection. The key difference is we also get 10% protection up, which also scales with health, meaning we get 15% return on health investment versus 5% on protection investment. That's a pretty huge margin, and that is almost entirely going to make up for our strategy for this run. Now, Cere, I give the pick of the litter in terms of the best bulk mods. The Cere that you're seeing here is the one I recommend with triple defense set. We also have 4 health primary. And as you're no doubt noticing, we have some very premium percent defense and percent protection secondaries. Don't worry if your mods aren't exactly this good. I also have a recorded run with a much weaker team. The biggest difference that we're talking about here is the better your health and defense are, the more breathing room that you are going to have where you're not constantly fighting for your life. This is very much an event designed around creating an equilibrium for your team. The better we are at achieving that, the easier the time we will have. It's also worth noting that my Cere is Relic 7. I do think Relic 8 would go a long way towards helping this mission. I also think that maybe Relic 8 on Cere could start to sound or feel better as we get closer to Malicos. It wasn't really an investment I was interested in until now, and I still haven't done it. But if you're having issues with the mission, if your mods aren't that great, that could be a way to bump your success rate. The other thing you need to know is Cere's unique down here states that she lowers her own cooldowns when enemies take turns, but she increases them when she takes turns. This creates a difference in our modding that if we do not pay close attention to this, will completely ruin the mission for us. We want Cere to get fully lapped by the enemy team every time, otherwise we won't make it to our nuke fast enough, and there's a good chance that Second Sister will end up killing us. Because of that, we have Cere's speed down pretty low actually. 215 is the number I landed on. This is not specifically clocked against anything, but if you're going to go a different number, I would recommend you trend on the slower side rather than faster. The bulk numbers that you see here, again, the diamond and cross being heavier on protection than I would like, but this is the stat setup that I'm running. The armor, of course, being very boosted. Speed being slow, but could be slower. Health being quite competitive. And protection, I would say, is icing on the cake, but you really should try to give preferential treatment to your percent defense secondaries. And the biggest difference that we're going to see between Cere and Cal is going to be the difference in their speed. The one thing I will say, I haven't had enough time to test for slow Cal yet, and I do wonder if there's a possible chance that fast Cal is opening himself up to purge more because faster Cal is losing tenacity up faster than Cere can remake it. This is something I'm not sure of, and everyone's been waiting for this video long enough. I've been getting a lot of questions and requests. I'm shipping this video without knowing the answer to that. If you feel like you're struggling or having issues with Cal taking too much purge, this is one thing that you could try by slowing Cal down. But for now, with how ferocious Second Sister can be in that second phase, I'm a big fan of having Cal continue to keep moving so that we can try to cycle this heal to try to keep people patched up. The logic makes sense to me. It's really just a question of consistency over a wider variety of runs. And right now, we're running with a very small sample set. Don't worry about the fact that you see a health set here. I do still recommend triple defense set. I just don't have a good second defense set to go in the slot, so I'm running a health set. You work with the mods that you have. Do your best to focus on mods that look like most of these that Cere has here. This is ideal. This is godlike. This is pretty good. So when it comes to actual gameplay, I'm gonna walk you through how to play it actually from the character menu rather than from in-game, because we're less dealing with a puzzle, do this then that solution, rather than, again, we're very much looking to continuously make the correct decision over time. And so rather than sequencing out a series of buttons, really we're just using the button that applies best to each situation, and it kind of has its own rhythm. So let's dive into this. Cere is the one that we will talk about first. Now, as mentioned, Cere is kind of the VIP here. We really need to protect her. And a partial reason for that is because she can give damage immunity to Cal, but not herself. Because she's the carry, this is increasingly stressful and is also why I have Cal so fast at the moment. Whether or not that's the correct call will remain to be seen, but this is the logic behind it, is we are saving Private Cere. And so along those lines, we also want to use her basic very often. In fact, I think I'm going to start using it at the start of the wave a lot more. The reason for that being this Tenacity Up. This Tenacity Up is our shield against incoming Purge. The enemy team has a mechanic that lets them execute people at 6 Purge, but also every time that they successfully land Purge on us, we also get slowed down. And we really, we're modding to be slow, but that doesn't necessarily mean we want them to continue to take more speed from us, right? We're at a calculated level of slowness, and anything past that just increases their damage window before we can try to patch it up. So this basic with Tenacity Up landing every 2 turns means we ideally want to use the basic every 2 turns. And last but not least, we have Cere's nuke. Now note that it does up to 200% max health damage. The enemies that we fight appear to be pretty heavily health stacked. This does not need to be max health stacks to kill. What it does need is for us to successfully remove the protection up shield that they like to make on themselves with their second special before we fire this off for the first time. The hardest part of this mission is going to be timing this nuke successfully. The thing I'll say is I had a run where we played it perfectly and we actually, hit the dispel right before Cere was about to use her nuke, and that actually ended up being too soon. So I think the general rule of thumb right now is going to be that you want to wait a couple of turns. Ironically, as I was working on this strategy, I screwed up the dispel timing, the first turn that it was available, and I think that actually ended up coaching me into kind of saving the nuke an extra turn to hit the right timing. But at the same time, depending on how vulnerable your team is, those couple of extra turns could be the difference between life or death. So again, this is the big ambiguous part of the mission. I have lost one mission because I fired it too soon. I lost one mission because I tried to wait 1 turn too long and got killed. And the majority of my wins ended up being in this sweet spot, somewhere in between where I botched having the nuke as soon as possible, went around the horn 1 extra time, and that seemed to get me the kill. Now, Cal is going to be one of the weirder ones to play because I think a lot of people are going to have some habits that are going to be causing them problems. Most importantly here, we need to talk about Cal's AoE. This AoE causes a lot of problems for how this event is designed. As we already talked about, Cere wants to get lapped. The problem is, this ability gives her speed up, gives her Terminator, because you'll see that it does apply Tenacity down, but you'll see that it applies it after the other 2 debuffs. And generally TB enemies, or at least this encounter's enemies, have very jacked up Tenacity. So you're going to be giving Cere speed up, you're going to be giving her Terminator. It's just going to delay her nuke. The thing I'll say is you don't have to never use it though. The situations where I would use it are if you know that you're taking a lot of damage pressure and let's say you don't have Cal's heal, it's like a turn or two off, and you just need to try to cycle back to it as fast as possible. That could be a reason to use this, right? This is kind of an emergency button. You could also use this if you know that you have Cere's nuke ready, so you don't have to worry about cooldown increasing or decreasing if you just need to cycle to her next turn. Otherwise, I very strongly recommend that you avoid using this at all possible. You're never going to be landing the speed down or stun. It's just a bait ability for the most part for this event. Now on the brighter side, on the more useful side of Cal's skills, the heal is our total life raft for when things get messy in phase 2. Now, do note that this ability functions better as a heal for characters have already taken damage rather than topping off characters' protection. This is both because, we get 45% health instead of 30% protection, but also we're modded for health over protection, and so we are getting much less per percent. On top of the fact that we're already getting less of a percentage, it's an ability that you can kind of situationally use. If you already got one Cere nuke off for one kill, you can absolutely start to use it to try to top people's protection off for the next wave. But once you're in the thick of it, once you're fighting Second Sister, I really strongly recommend that you try to save this for the crucial heal. You will be at some moments in wave 2 where you feel like you are not taking that much damage. And I promise you, that can change very quickly and very violently. The majority of the time, the main thing that you're going to be doing with Cal is actually just his basic. It's nothing really flashy here, it's more just a way of saying, I have nothing I need to add to this turn, so we skip. The one thing we do need to talk about though, is the event ability. This is something that can technically be done by Cere, but if we're really going to play this team as cleanly and tightly as possible, this should really be Cal's job unless we're in a tight spot where Cal has to heal and then Cere has to dispel. You will notice up at the top right, this second special that the Purge Troopers have. This lets them taunt, but this also lets them give themselves percent health shielding, and this is our mortal enemy. We need to make sure that ideally Cal has a dispel ready for this move if it's about to come up again, so that we can prepare the board for Cere to use her nuke. And especially in wave 1, the trickiest part of this is going to be making sure that we're tracking both of the Purge Troopers cooldowns. I have had many runs where I do the timing perfectly, but only on one of them just for the other trooper to end up taunting instead. Now phase 1 has less damage pressure than phase 2, so this isn't necessarily a total death sentence, but if you're on not the best bulk modding, every second can count and phase 1 can absolutely still put you in the dirt, so really you should try to keep this in mind. And yeah, that's kind of just it. It's, again, not a very complicated mission. It's more just you have a set of tools and you just apply them where applicable, but otherwise we're really just kind of going with the flow, seeing what happens and rolling with the punches. So I have a few runs here. I'm going to show you the weaker team first, and then I'll show you my personal run next to it. I'll also include a quick sped up example of one of the runs where I held the nuke for too long towards the very end, just to show you how quick things can turn on you sometimes. But other than that, that's all I got for you today. Good luck out there. Happy hunting.